Hello, I'm Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. This series of podcasts is aimed at financial planning professionals and also those who are looking to enter the financial planning profession. We will be talking during the podcast about all things Certified Financial Planner certification related, talking to other CFPs around the world, and also we will be dropping in on some new entrants who've just entered the financial planning profession, and we'll be checking up along the way on a regular basis with them to see how they're getting on. I hope you enjoy today's podcast. Hello and welcome. I'm Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. And in today's podcast, we are talking about marketing and all the ins and outs of the do's and don'ts with social media marketing in particular. And I'm joined by a very special guest, and that is Lindsay Chree from Create Social Media. Welcome, Lindsay.
Hi, Jackie.
How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So I have loads of questions to ask you because one of the reasons why we know each other is because I attended one of your free online sessions a while ago now, wasn't it?
Right. That's right.
When I was just kind of starting out trying to use LinkedIn more and pondering whether I should have, how many social media accounts I should have. And I was kind of getting weighed down in all the different social media accounts and the pressure of it all. It was kind of turning into a full-time job. So I was very grateful for that session that you gave us, and also, lots of advice that you give on LinkedIn about this particular issue. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to tell all of our listeners about, the sorts of things, the do's and don'ts that we want them to do in order to get the most out of their social media, and maybe some food for thought, the kind of tips, best practice tips, so that everybody can make the most out of their business. Because I think, like me, obviously I've got a business that's targeting financial planning firms, but obviously lots of the listeners are financial planning firms themselves, and they're going to be targeting, clients, potential clients, other members of the public. So before we get into all of that, just give us a quick rundown of how you got to where you are today.
Right. Well, my full background is marketing. So coming up 25 years now, I've been in marketing. Lots of different areas, lots of different types of marketing, right from when it was traditional marketing to right up to date with all the digital stuff. So a lot of my background is in financial marketing. So I've worked with several banks and sort of in insurance, pensions, the bulk of my career. And I went into consultancy. So I did a bit of that where it was kind of like short-term contracts with bigger companies. And then laterally I kind of moved into kind of freelance my own business. So that's kind of where I've been for the last few years since lockdown, really.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, coincidentally, really, when things just had to go digital, I was quite lucky. That was the kind of move I was making.
Yes. So I guess you've seen it, develop and change and different, move in different directions over the years then.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, I'm a sort of long-term marketing person from when it was traditional marketing, lots of mailers and sort of posters, and obviously that still goes on, but now the emphasis is a lot more on, getting out to the masses in a digital way. So in banks, you'd be getting going out to 5 million, 6 million people with one mailing campaign, to now kind of working with sort of smaller sized businesses where they didn't have anything, and now they've got the sort of luxury, I guess, of having the sort of low cost of digital platforms they can make use of. So yeah, that's kind of gone full circle.
Well, I've got an armful, well, actually 2 armfuls of questions for you. Never mind the one. So I'm going to dive straight in and let's immerse ourselves in the world of digital marketing and different social media platforms. And so my first question is, in order for a financial planning business to grow, which social media platforms would you recommend that they use?
Well, actually, interestingly, there's probably an argument for nearly all of them. Unfortunately, in some cases, because really, I mean, you're talking to financial planning companies are talking to nearly everyone, from kind of young generations to older generations and people who aren't on digital at all. So yeah, but I mean, my instinct obviously draws me towards LinkedIn because of the subject matter. It's a sort of businessy kind of area. It's much more focused on business, and some of the other platforms are a wee bit more entertainment. So I suppose that the key to it in picking your platforms is knowing who your audience is for you and your business. And obviously that's a kind of matter of sort of niching. Are you going for the wealth side? Are you going for like female customers? Are you, what's your particular ideal dream clients and customers? That will kind of guide you a wee bit towards the platforms.
Yeah.
So there, yeah, it's not a straight answer, but yeah, I mean, if I had to pick something, I would go for LinkedIn.
Start with
But I have
LinkedIn, at
helped people.
least.
I have
Yeah.
helped people in I've helped people on Instagram, financial planners on Instagram as well, and that's been quite successful. I suppose it's also where your comfort zone is. Not a lot of people start off being comfortable with video, but things like Instagram, video is a lot more prevalent, and not that it's not still great on LinkedIn. And video can kind of connect with your audience's potential a lot quicker, with that trust factor kind of accelerating. So there's arguments for a few of them, but yeah, if you're starting out, I would say start out on
LinkedIn, and then think about the platforms, hang out where your clients or potential clients were hanging out, I guess, isn't it?
Exactly, and there'll be your different target audiences will be on different platforms as well.
Yeah, yeah. Can you have too many social media platforms? Because I kind of felt, when I came to you 12 months or so ago, that I kind of had too many because you've got a personal account, you've got a business account, you've got to have, should we have a business LinkedIn account, a personal LinkedIn account, a business Instagram account, a personal Instagram account, and you end up with double of everything. And I was just completely, at sea with it all. But what's your stance on, should we have, a personal account and a business account, or what's the relationship between those two?
Yeah, obviously it's there's only so much time in the day, and you really do have to focus when it comes to social media, because also you can't just cut and paste. As I sort of alluded to there, Instagram's going to be quite different content in a lot of cases to LinkedIn, and how you kind of the formats available, the features available. So I would say, if you're a solo business owner, I think you should maybe focus on one or two. If you're a bigger business, yeah, you've got probably staff and the time and resources to go across a lot of them, because you'll maybe have a wider target audience base, and you're building on a lot more brand awareness than most people have the luxury to. So yeah, and also it can, as you mentioned there, just completely overwhelm people, which is completely understandable. On your question about business versus personal, I always think that it's actually pretty good to just have a presence as a business. If you've got a business name, I would just register your LinkedIn business sort of name and just put your kind of almost position it as a bit of a website. But your main focus, if you're a small business or a solo business financial planner, then I would just put all your content out from the personal page. But that way, if you have a business page, you can have the icon down there with your sort of logo down in your employment history. So that just kind of gives you an extra little bit of branding there. But really, unless you've kind of got a sort of like big company announcement, I don't think it's too relevant for a lot of small businesses to be active on both.
I think people do business with people, don't they? And that's the thing.
Yeah. So you're going to get, if you've got both, no matter what size of company, you're going to get more interaction on the personal pages for sure.
Right. So now we've cleared up all of that. Says she writes a note, start business LinkedIn page. Let's talk about sales tactics. about, the kind of do's and don'ts of attracting new clients and the sales tactics that, I've seen some people put quite pushy sales tactics, even if they are obviously not fabricating the truth, but it kind of still feels that they're, fluffing it up a bit, or making these things sound grander than they really are. Where do you stand on these kind of sales tactics, how to attract new clients in?
Well, I think obviously you're leaning a lot towards your brand, your sort of brand values and so on. So you keep that in mind. Obviously, if you have a strategy sort of laid out, that really helps. But always bearing in mind that social media is really a social platform. So people aren't really geared up to sort of be taking on board really salesy messages. That's not what they're there for. They're there of their own choice. So, if do they feel like they're getting spammed with messages that are just A, too much, and B, too salesy, they're not going to read them. They're just going to scroll past, and they're going to actually actively avoid you. So you want to make your content appealing in terms of building relationships up, like adding value with your content, your storytelling, being as authentic as you can. I know there's a lot of, on Instagram, you will get your Instagram versions and your real life versions, which is to a certain extent, fair enough. I'm not going to send a picture of like my messy office right now, although I have done in the past, but to make a point. But just you're going to get slightly shined up version, but you need to make the most of social media, and you need to tell your story, and you need to be authentic, and people can see right through that. And also use your customers. It's called user generated, a bit of jargon. User generated content. Use what your customers are saying, their experiences, and that brings authenticity in as well. And have conversations. Again, it's not like an one-way street. You've got to like engage. You've got to talk. You've got to people are on there to have this sort of real-time interaction with the brand. They're not there to look at a website or a brochure. So just being authentic as you can, professional. Certain things you do want to keep to yourself, but just people won't come to you if they don't like what they see. So, but obviously bear in mind that you do need to sell as well. But just do that in a more sort of genuine way. You're adding value. You're saying you've got a workshop coming up. Hopefully it'll help you. But ultimately you're selling something at the back of that genuinely. But upfront about that, and people will come because they know that businesses are businesses at the end of the day. But also things like tagging. Don't tag a load of people that aren't it's not relevant in the post. Don't overly get people to engage like this post, unless it's something like this post if you agree, or just don't be clickbaity is what's making them engage in an unauthentic way as well.
Yes, I think you can kind of feel like you're strong-armed into responding if somebody tags you in it, and you think, hang on a minute, what's all that about?
Yes, it has to be real. It has to come from.
And are they doing that because if they tag you in, is it right that the algorithm sends that message kind of down your own personal feed if somebody tags you in?
If you're tagging people, for me, you're trying to get them to sort of be engaged in the content, but that's only if it's really a sort of a genuine thing. Like, I talked to you today about this, and we both had a chat, and then you put a post up and I tag you and I say, oh, our chat earlier was about this, and you've got a right to sort of, and it's a good strategy to tag people that are relevant. But out of the blue, when you get there's a lot of spammy things with where you're being tagged, and you've no idea why you're being tagged. That's just spam, really.
And I guess you're just annoying the person that you're tagging if you're doing all of that, aren't you? Yeah.
Chop
and you're gone.
No mercy.
Yeah. So let's talk about typos. I'm dreadful at spelling, as my husband will attest to. So I tend to write without my glasses on when I'm on my LinkedIn app on my phone, and then I get to my laptop and then realise that there's a typo right in the middle of it. So then I end up going back and editing it all. Let's talk about, there's probably a better way to be doing all of that so you can kind of avoid all these typos, because I guess in that short time between walking from the kitchen with my cup of tea in my hand to sitting down at my laptop, 40 odd people could have seen that post, couldn't they?
Yeah. It's obviously you need to be professional. You need attention to detail, and obviously first impressions count and all this type of thing. It's not the end of the world, right? People do typos. Everyone's human. There's actually, bizarrely enough, there is an argument in some platforms to not edit it. In something like Instagram, if you blood, sweat, and tears, you've got this reel out that's taking you quite a long time, and you've been back and forth in the editing. You get the reel out and you've forgotten about it, and there is a typo in there, like maybe 2 hours later you see it. You've actually got all the people engaging, you've got the comments, you've got the people sharing it. It's actually going to go more against you if it's just a small typo to actually delete it or edit it, because that starts the process from scratch again. So all engagement and all this good stuff that you're getting initially, if you edit it, then they see that as the algorithm will see that as a sort of problem, error. It will kind of have red flags their side, and it will take sort of that engagement away, if you like. So if that makes any sense. So in some occasions, I would just leave it, and I know it's uncomfortable, but a lot of times people will say, well, that is just a genuine tiny error. Obviously, making sure you try and avoid that. There's things like Grammarly. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's basically, yes, well, hopefully most people are, is fantastic for picking things like that up before it goes out. And obviously, if you can have, if you're in an organization more than one, I would just have a system of someone absolutely proofreading it before it goes out, and just having a second glance at it. Things like if there's typos in your profile, sort of no excuse for that. You have to keep reviewing your profile all the time as well. But also if you've got keywords in there, which is really important these days, that if you're misspelling them, then that goes against, you're not going to have the use of the keyword if there's misspelled. It's just sort of professionalism. I mean, people will forgive a typo here and there, but if you're seeing it all the time, no, I don't mean here and there, I mean sort of very rarely, very occasionally, it's not going to be a showstopper for your business or anything. But I would definitely have a good look at things before they go out, because sending them out, you don't really want to stop that. You're almost, if you see it in the first few minutes, you'd almost be better deleting it and putting it up again, but also make sure you've got a copy. So you can copy and paste it again, so that's been treated as an entirely new post as opposed to an edited one, which can get fiddled with. It's this, they don't like it on the platforms if you edit soon after it's gone out.
Right. Okay. Note to self: start using Grammarly a bit more frequently.
I know it's, but I mean, do you know what? It's way worse than sending an email out to 5 million people and seeing a typo there, because you can't do anything about it.
Yes. There's that famous letter that was it that West that sent out said, "Dear Rich B." I won't complete the rest of the word.
Yes.
And then apparently a number of people who hadn't received the letter, who found out about this letter, phoned the bank in question and said, "Why aren't I a Rich B? Why didn't I get the letter?"
Oh God! There's somebody in there just absolutely dying. They're dying a death.
Yes, I expect heads were rolling that day. That was probably a highlight of their career, but ended swiftly, I suspect, on that day. So let's move on to marketing strategies overall. So a lot of our audience are relatively small and medium-sized financial planning firms, and I guess a bit like me, I kind of follow my nose as far as a marketing strategy goes. But I know from, previous experiences of bigger employers that, there are quite clear marketing strategies. Even if you're a relatively small business, what's your view on having, kind of fully set out marketing strategy?
Oh, well, obviously I'm going to recommend a strategy, but I do recommend it genuinely, because it's really going to save a lot of time in the long run. I mean, a bit of work up front, on sort of like looking at your audiences, what's your sort of genuine, like, your marketing funnel, what's your content strategy, what kind of, like, looking at a pie chart and saying what proportion of my content and what does each of those proportions actually do. Is it like reputation building? Is it community, supporting the community? Really looking at that stuff on the outset, and then then the planning process becomes a lot easier. So you're sort of saying, maybe one of these posts a month is about this, two's about this, three's about this. You're going to be able to lay out the month quite quickly. Another matter then writing about it, but you don't have to kind of come in and go, oh gosh, I need to get something out this week, and you're scrambling around and you're actually putting just nonsense up. So really, it's definitely worth every single business, whether you're a solo business or a big business, especially, obviously, really looking at, in fact, even more so for a solo business, because you're on your own. You need to be so organized in what you're putting out, so you're not wasting any time, and you're able to sort of then, you've got a strategy. You can actually look at the results from that strategy. Whereas if you don't, you can't measure it.
Can't do anything. Yeah. And then I guess on the back of that, because that you can be mindful of the kind of content that you're going to do, on any given week. Then I guess if you're sending out newsletters, for example, once a fortnight, maybe once a month, a lot of small firms do that once a month, don't they? I guess that means that you can group that content together, and you've got, easy content for your newsletters too, for people, who might have only seen one of those posts, because not everybody sees all of the social media posts that you put out, do they?
No, absolutely. And that's the mistake people make, is that they assume that everyone's read everything. And that is far from the case. Not because they're not interested, but their attention spans are so little. They actually may not have time. They may have seen a bit of it, but not read all of it. They actually, the algorithms are such that, you might get to like maybe 2 to 4% of your followers. You don't even get to all your followers, and that's not even considering non-followers. You don't get to many people to start with. So yeah, just really thinking about that repurposing piece, where you can use posts for newsletters, vice versa. You can make newsletters into like video clips, or long form content into short form. There's so much you can do with like this a small pool of content. You can really spread it wide, and even just copy it with a different image 2 or 3 weeks later. People really are. So it sounds sort of almost defeating the purpose, but people don't pay that much attention in order to remember every post that you put out, but they will be absorbing the sort of like your consistency and what you're talking about, and your thought leadership, and that's coming across in your all your posts if you're consistent. But people aren't going to remember specific things.
Yeah. And I guess you're kind of building in their subconscious, you're building a relationship and a reputation with them, aren't you?
Exactly. So if you don't have that plan, you're not kind of following that sort of like your consistent branding message, and potentially you're damaging your reputation. You're losing followers. Think, well, I'm not interested in this stuff. Why I don't see this, and they'll just drop off. Whereas if you're following a proper strategy, they're going to stay with you, and they're going to pay attention, and they're going to look for you and look out for what you've got to say.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Mm-hmm. And so, I am a big one for a hashtag. But yes. I read the other day that LinkedIn says that if you're going to put a post up, it's got to be at least like 150 words, and you need like 3 hashtags or something. But, there's some posts that I see that have dozens and dozens of hashtags. Is there a point at which kind of, particularly LinkedIn, kind of goes, and then, chops you off because you're using too many hashtags? Is there kind of an ideal number of hashtags to be using in our posts?
Yeah, there is actually. It depends on the platform. So for Instagram was kind of like the grand master of hashtags. So their indexing was the original sort of indexing, and then came sort of like LinkedIn sort of, and then Facebook sort of laterally started using LinkedIn as a way of people finding your content, people following those hashtags. So they're still useful. Recent talk is that they're not as useful because sort of keywords are becoming more, and SEO within the platforms is becoming more of a thing. But you are right that for LinkedIn certainly 3 is the optimum number, according to LinkedIn themselves. There was some research done on the algorithms, and 3 was optimum. So I would, and it's not always just about the algorithms. If you put a lot of hashtags in LinkedIn itself, it just looks really spammy. Even though it might not be, I mean, it might not deter from your performance. It just looks bad on certain platforms. And same with Facebook. A lot of people cross post Instagram and Facebook, which isn't a terrible thing, but when it pulls in all the Instagram hashtags, that's when it kind of looks pretty bad on Facebook, because Facebook aren't known for really using hashtags in their algorithm. So yeah, definitely if you're looking at LinkedIn, I would stick with 3 and make them really specific to the content, obviously, because then it just looks pretty weird as well if it doesn't relate to what you're talking about.
Yes.
And also I would go with sort of like very popular one, so you can actually search on some of the platforms for how many people are following that hashtag. So you might go with one with very big numbers, and then you might go for kind of a more niche one, but don't just make up a silly one, because that's pointless as well, because people actually have to be following that hashtag for it to come up in searches, and they need to be following it to come up in their feed as well. So just be mindful of the hashtags you're using, and if you're looking at your analytics, just be sure you're sort of maybe grouping them, and looking at those particular groups of hashtags. Are those the ones that worked well, or is it this group? And you can't be that scientific, because otherwise you'd have to be testing one exact post with another one with the different hashtags at the same time. So it's not really possible to do it that scientifically, but you can in Instagram, you can look at if people have come from a search on their hashtag as well. So there are ways you can look at it. But yeah, they're still very much a thing. But just be careful with it, and consider keywords as another way of getting people to
keywords. Find. That's a good one. And what, when you write a hashtag, okay, I was going back to school now, but when you write a hashtag, I saw, lots of people use the hashtag where everything's lowercase. And for some parts of the population, it's difficult to read what the hashtag is saying if you don't use capital letters. So then I know that recently there's been a drive to replace, all of the lowercase with some capital letters. So you're splitting out the words with capital letters. Does that make any difference to the actual hashtag and effectiveness? Or is it just that, that it's actually helping people, read actually what you mean on the hashtag?
No, that doesn't make a difference, the capital or not. It's just the word. But yeah, I mean, so in that sense, it doesn't really matter using capitals, but I don't suppose it goes against you. I don't put any symbols in, because that's going to mess it up.
And I think, there are some people, with, neurodivergent who find it difficult to, and I've actually, somebody sent me a hashtag the other day, and I found it really hard to pick out what the hashtag was because of the words combined. It could have read 2 or 3 different ways.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I don't tend to use capital letters within it, but I can see your point there in terms of it being a little more readable.
It's just something I came across, as you do. So we're nearly out of time, but I wanted to ask you about to seek your views on a very important topic, something that's been across certainly LinkedIn recently, and that is negative reviews. If a financial planning firm receives a negative review, say on Google Reviews, for example, or on any other social media platform, what are the do's and don'ts with, interacting potentially with that post, or, running a mile and hopefully kick it into the long grass?
Well, yeah. So certainly on LinkedIn, you would ask for a recommendation from someone you probably know. So you're quite probably safe on LinkedIn, and you get to see that review before it goes up. You sort of approve it. So that's probably one of the safer things. But yeah, that's not stopping people commenting. So people commenting on posts as well. I would, always stay calm, professional. If there is a real concern on there, acknowledge it. But also the really best advice is try and take it offline. So if someone's got a personal sort of like problem, something's happened, just say, message me and we'll deal with that. Sort of thing. Taking it away from the public forum really is the best initial, response you can do. And then obviously, keep monitoring your comments, making sure you're always seeing things as they're coming in, so you can sort of de-escalate things if needed. If you need to make an apology and say you're dealing with it. That's what, the public needs to know. You're just dealing with it.
Yeah. I mean, we're not perfect, are we? That's the thing.
No,
we make mistakes and these things happen.
No, absolutely. So yeah, that would be the first thing to do. Don't ignore them, get on to them. But there are certain ones that are clearly trolls, So if something goes down that route, you can certainly ignore it. If it's just absolutely ridiculous comments, and they're just argumentative, provocative, there's even an element of just deleting them. The ones that are so outrageous, they're just polluting your page. You can delete that. If there's nothing there to comment on, you can't respond. It's just trolling. I personally would delete it. You're not gaining anything from just having it sit there, and you're not going to respond because it's just provocative. So you could delete it. Although deleting comments is probably not seen well from the algorithm, but in some cases, you may as well. Don't obviously, take a moment if you need to. If something's like just really got an emotional response, don't do it straight away. Go away, take a think about it. Take that moment you need to sort of respond professionally if it's something really personal or something. And don't just kind of comment a stock response. Make sure that if it's a personal matter that someone genuinely needs a response to, make it personal. Just sort of generally being professional like you would anywhere else. But yeah, with getting the main conversation chain offline.
Yeah. And, and I guess the follow-up is important, isn't it? Because if you don't actually contact them, if you say, I'm going to contact you offline and we'll chat through your specific issues, then just don't.
Absolutely. They're going to come back at you.
They'll be back out.
Angry people. It's a good route for an angry person to come on and sort of like tweet and it's very, very public. So you don't aggravate people. Just treat them well. But don't engage in any nonsense either. You don't have to defend yourself from really ridiculous people. They're going to be out there, aren't they? You don't need to respond to that. So they're going to look more stupid than you are. They're going to look like the trolls that they are. So you don't need to respond to anything like that. Respond to things that you genuinely should be responding to.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so I know that we are just about out of time now, but I know that you have recently held some LinkedIn free sessions, haven't you? Tell us about all of those if people want to find out more and contact you. Yeah,
so I did some LinkedIn live sessions on how to be more strategic on your social media. So pretty much along the lines of some of the stuff we've said, looking at your goals for social media and a marketing funnel, relating to social media goals, looking at your audiences and your branding on social media, and ultimately your content strategy, and looking at those data points as well that you need to. So yeah, you could find that on my LinkedIn profile. They should still be up there as recorded.
Thank you very much. And I will, for all our listeners, I will put details of your website and also your LinkedIn details into the show notes so people can find all of those recordings as well and contact you offline if they want to.
Brilliant.
Lindsay, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. Thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you very much.
It's really interesting, isn't it, to listen to different people who have different experiences of gaining their certified financial planner certification, or maybe developing the financial planning profession at large. If you know anybody who you think might be interested in listening to any of these podcasts, then please do pass on our details. That's it for me. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. See you again soon. Bye for now.